Ciao, and welcome to Immersion Travel Italy, where we don't just visit Italy, we experience it. I'm Katerina Ferrara, travel author and festival enthusiast, taking you behind the scenes to some of Italy's most unforgettable traditions. From candlelight processions through medieval streets to sizzling food festivals bursting with flavor, I'll share insider tips, hidden gems, and stories you won't find in any guidebook. So grab your espresso and let's dive into the heart and soul of Italy, one festival, one town at a time. Close your eyes and picture this: a wide, mirror-still shimmering lake beneath snow-dusted peaks of the Alps. A gentle breeze carries the scent of jasmine and wisteria, and from across the water, church bells echo over the blue. Ferries glide towards small islands dotted with palaces, gardens, and fishermen's cottages. Welcome to Lago Maggiore, a lake that belongs to two countries and countless streams, half Italian, half Swiss, and entirely enchanting. When I think of Lago Maggiore, I think of mornings that we spent on our balcony in Baveno, coffee in hand, watching the ferries cross the silver water toward the islands, spending leisurely breakfasts along the lakefront in the restaurant. It was one of the rare places that makes you feel instantly at peace, elegant yet effortless, deeply Italian and yet somehow European in its soul. We arrived here after 5 unforgettable nights in Turin, where we explored the Baroque beauty of Piemonte, from Alba's truffle markets to Asti's sunlit piazzas to the quiet grace of Bra and Alessandria. On the way out of Turin, we stopped at the Regia di Veneria Reale, one of Italy's grandest royal palaces, and we had lunch at its Michelin-starred restaurant perched high above the palace in town, a meal that opened doors to rooms that were not normally seen by visitors. It's a perfect bridge between royal splendor and the calm of the lakes. From there, we drove about an hour and a half to Baveno and checked into the Hotel Rigioli. Our corner room had a panoramic balcony overlooking the lake and the islands, a view so stunning that we felt like we were living inside of a painting. Each morning, breakfast on the terrace came with church bells and the scent of fresh brioche. We spent our days exploring by ferry, visiting Isola Bella, Isola Madre, and Isola dei Pescatori on a guided tour, sailing out to the Eremo di Santa Caterina del Sasso, and even dining one evening on Isola Bella at Risto Lounge Alvezia, where a small water taxi carried us home beneath the stars. One of my favorite days was actually a short side trip to another lake, Lago d'Orta, and the town of Orta San Giulio. A quick 22-minute drive, and we could take a boat to Isola d'Orta and climb the Sacro Monte, a UNESCO pilgrimage trail with 21 chapels dedicated to St. Francis of Assisi. On our final day, we crossed into Switzerland, visiting Locarno and the hilltop sanctuary of the Madonna del Sasso, where a vision of Mary appeared in 1480. We explored Piazza Grande, tasted the Swiss chocolates, and ferried to Cannobio and Canero Riviera for an aperitivo along the lakeside. That trip was part of a larger journey that eventually carried us north to St. Gallen, Switzerland, and on to Lindau on Lake Constance, blending Italian warmth with alpine adventure. While I would happily spend every vacation day in Italy, my husband loves to wander beyond its borders, and Lago Maggiore was a perfect meeting point for both of us. Those beautiful experiences shaped the very heart of this series. It's a place where every path, ferry ride, and lakeside meal tells a story, and I can't wait to share those with you. I'm Katerina Ferrara, and you're listening to the Immersion Travel Italy podcast, where we wander beyond the guidebook to discover Italy's festivals, stories, and hidden corners that bring travel to life. In this new 5-part series, we'll journey the full length of Lago Maggiore, from its alpine northern tip in Switzerland down to the lakeside towns of Piemonte and Lombardy, all the way to the tranquil shores near Milan. We'll explore centuries-old villas, Baroque gardens, art-filled palaces, mountain trails, and local festivals that keep the rhythm of life around the lake. But today, in our first episode, we're starting at the lake's center, the Italian center, the shimmering Italian stretch anchored by Stresa, Baveno, and the islands. At first glance, Stresa seems like a scene from a romantic painting: rows of pastel villas, the curve of the lakeside promenade, and the Borromean Islands floating just offshore. Yet, this tranquil town has a long and fascinating story. Centuries ago, Stresa was a tiny fishing village, its people living quietly from the lake. The path to Stresa's elegance began in the early 1800s when Napoleon Bonaparte ordered the construction of the Strada Napoleonica del Sempione, the Napoleonic road that still winds along the western shore of the lake. Built between 1806 and 1809, it was part of his ambitious route connecting Milan to the Simplon Pass and onto Switzerland and France. This new road transformed travel around the lake, replacing narrow mule paths with a broad, scenic roadway that hugged the shoreline. What once had been a quiet fishing hamlet suddenly became accessible to carriages and travelers journeying to Italy and to the Alps. By the 19th century, the route helped Stresa bloom into one of Italy's most fashionable destinations. The town became a beloved stop on the European Grand Tour, that rite of passage for aristocrats, artists, and writers seeking inspiration and refinement. They came for the clean alpine air, glittering lake views, and the serene tranquility that seemed to slow time itself. Soon, elegant villas and hotels began to rise along the waterfront. The arrival of the railway from Milan to Domodossola in 1906 made the journey even easier, ushering in the golden age of lakeside leisure. The most famous of these grand hotels, the Grand Hotel delles Borromean, opened in 1863 and quickly became a symbol of refinement and culture. Its frescoed ceilings, marbled balconies, and chandeliers still recall the era when Ernest Hemingway stayed here and later immortalized the town in A Farewell to Arms. Before him, composers like Franz Liszt and conductors such as Arturo Toscanini found inspiration in the quiet beauty of these shores. Walk the promenade in the early morning and you can almost feel their presence. The sun rises over the lake, the mountains blush pink, and the water lilies stand perfectly still, as if waiting for the first ferry to stir them awake. Locals stroll the promenade, sit in cafes with espresso, and greet one another with a soft buongiorno. The air carries a faint perfume of gardenias from villa terraces. As you follow the curved waterfront, wrought iron lampposts lead you to Piazza Marconi, where ferries depart for the islands. Each ticket feels like a key to unlocking the rest of the beauty of the lake. But Stresa isn't only elegance, it's intimacy. Step a few streets back from the lake and you'll find narrow lanes lined with stone houses and tiny shops selling ceramics, olive wood, and local wine. In the afternoons, you'll hear the bells of Sant'Ambrogio and the laughter of locals enjoying their aperitivos at cafes along the lakeside. For many visitors, Stresa becomes not just a stop, but a feeling, a balance between grandeur and serenity, a beautiful place to stay. And from this lakeside stage, our journey naturally turns toward the jewels glimmering on the horizon, the Borromean Islands, floating like a constellation of history and art. From the dock at Stresa, or Baveno, a short ferry ride takes you across Lago Maggiore to one of the most magical places in northern Italy, the Isola Borromee. Isola Bella, Isola dei Pescatori, and Isola Madre. Three very different worlds linked by beauty, faith, and a centuries-long legacy of one of the most powerful families from Milan. Isola Bella. When we first took the ferry from Baveno to the Borromean Islands, I remember standing on the edge of the boat, the wind soft against my face, a nice hot sunny day, watching the islands slowly emerge like a painting brushed onto the lake. It's one thing to read about the islands, but another thing to glide toward them, their silhouettes shimmering like jewels on the water. We had organized a private 5-hour tour with Daniela, a local guide who had grown up on the lake. She told stories that made the islands come alive, legends of noble families, secret passages, and even white peacocks, which are my husband's favorite memory. They're thought to bring good fortune. As our ferry neared Isola Bella, the island seemed to rise straight out of the lake, crowned with gardens that looked almost too perfect to be real. Our guide told us that centuries ago, this was just a barren rock until Carlo III Borromeo decided to turn the islands into a paradise for his wife. Walking through Palazzo Borromeo, I felt as I had stepped into a living museum, a family's home. Marble staircases spiraled upward beneath frescoed ceilings. The grand mirrors and chandeliers caught the sunlight from the lake. The views from all the windows were incredible. In the Sala di Napoleone, where Napoleon and Josephine once stayed, our guide paused to point out the original tapestries that still hung in the room, soft faded reminders of centuries of splendor. My favorite part was the palace, but I also enjoyed the grotto beneath the palace. These cool, shell-covered chambers were designed for summer retreats. The sound of the gentle waves echoed through the open windows, and you could feel the temperature drop the moment you entered. It was like stepping into a peaceful underworld made of art and stone. Outside, we wandered with our guide to the most theatrical garden in Italy. 10 Baroque terraces rise one above the other, crowned by statues, fountains, citrus trees, and white peacocks that wander freely through the hedges. Every step offered a new surprise, a hidden archway, a sudden burst of color, or a perfect view of the Alps reflected on the water. Standing at the top, I looked back toward Baveno, where we were staying, its pastel villas gleaming along the shoreline. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, and the lake shimmered below in the sunshine. It was one of those rare travel moments where time felt suspended. Before we left, we stopped at the chapel of St. Charles Borromeo, the family's most venerated ancestor. Our guide spoke about him with reverence, their local saint, a man who shaped Milan's faith, its art, and even its public health reforms during the plague. His spirit still seems to watch over these islands, binding together beauty and devotion. The next island on our trip was the Isola dei Pescatori, the island of the fishermen. It's a short ferry ride, and it's more simplistic. The only island still inhabited year-round, home to fewer than 50 residents. Narrow lanes twisted between old stone houses, laundry fluttered from balconies, and cats dozed lazily on the steps. I felt like we had stepped into another rhythm of life, a slower, warmer, deeply human life. Our guide led us to the Church of San Vittore, a quiet sanctuary dating back nearly 1,000 years. Inside, the light from candles glittered and faded frescoes glowed softly on the walls. You could almost see the generations of islanders who had been baptized or married here. Afterward, we stopped for lunch overlooking the lake, a creamy plate of risotto, fish for my husband, from local perch caught on these waters. I still remember the hum of conversation, the laughter of locals, and everybody knew everyone by name. Our guide told us that during Ferragosto on August 15th, the whole island transforms. Boats decked with lights circle the shore, music echoes over the lake, and fireworks explode over the water in the evening. It's a festival, it's part feast, part faith, and purely magical. Isola dei Pescatori reminded me that Lago Maggiore isn't just about opulence, it's about real people living in the real rhythm of the water and carrying traditions back centuries. Our next stop was Isola Madre, the largest island and the oldest of the three. After the bustle of Pescatori, it felt like entering another world. The gardens are pure poetry, designed in the English landscape style. They unfold like a dream, winding paths lined with camellias, magnolias, ancient cedars, and parrots flutter between the branches. White peacocks again wander gracefully across the lawns, completely unbothered by us visitors. Inside the Villa Borromeo, our guide pointed out antique furniture, oil paintings, and a charming collection of marionettes, once used for family performances in the 18th and 19th centuries. Standing in these rooms, I could see the family living here, with the beautiful views. If Isola Bella dazzles, Pescatori hums with life, Isola Madre whispers it's the heart of peace on Lago Maggiore. By the time we returned to the ferry, the sun was lowering, but we still had one more stop. After visiting the three islands, Daniela left us and we headed to the Eremo di Santa Caterina del Sasso, or the Hermitage of St. Catherine of the Rock. We visited it by ferry, and I'll never forget the moment when it came into view, because it seems to hang suspended halfway down a cliff, its bell tower rising above the turquoise lake. It looked almost impossible. According to legend, the Hermitage was founded in the 12th century by a merchant from Lugano named Alberto Besozzi. He had been shipwrecked on the lake during a violent storm and in desperation prayed to Santa Caterina, St. Catherine of Alexandria, promising to dedicate his life to her if he survived. When he reached the shore alive, he withdrew and lived as a hermit in a cave on a cliff, where he built a small chapel in her honor. That act of gratitude grew to one of the lake's most enduring spiritual landmarks. Over the centuries, the Hermitage expanded to a complex of 3 chapels, each added at different times. The Church of San Nicola with Romanesque frescoes, the Church of St. Catherine, Santa Caterina, with the saints' relics and paintings from the 14th and 15th centuries, and the Church of Santa Maria Nova, with delicate frescoes that tell the story of faith lived in simplicity and silence. Today, visitors can reach the Hermitage by ferry from Stresa, Baveno, or you can climb down 268 steps on the cliff. After walking through the cloisters, we stepped out onto the balcony, and the scene was gorgeous. It's easy to see why the Hermitage has inspired poets, painters, and pilgrims for centuries. If you go, visit early in the morning or late afternoon when the light is golden and the crowds are few. It's one of the rare places that speaks quietly but deeply, a reminder that faith, beauty, and endurance can literally reshape stone. Just a practical note about ferries. A day pass from Navigazione Lago Maggiore allows unlimited island hopping, perfect for leisurely exploration. That's how we did it. If you want to explore the islands without midday crowds, try and go early in the morning or late in the afternoon. Photography lovers will find the best views of Isola Bella from the water, or even better from the small harbor of Baveno just across the lake. If you're planning ahead, spring brings an explosion of azaleas and camellias, while autumn paints the gardens fall colors of gold and crimson. Each season has its own personality. North of Stresa, across a quiet curve of Lago Maggiore, lies the town of Baveno, where we stayed, smaller, calmer, and somehow more personal. If Stresa dazzles with its glamour, Baveno invites you to sit down, exhale, and stay a while. We based ourselves here for 5 nights. From the very first morning, I know we had chosen perfectly. Life in Baveno moves to the rhythm of the lake, ferries and coming and going, sunlight dancing across the water, locals greeting each other with a smile. The reason I chose Baveno, to be perfectly honest with you, is because when you look at a map of the lake, you'll see that a lot of places along the lake are on the other side from Napoleon's Road. And if I stay in a lakefront property, I don't want this busy highway type road between me and the lake. So that's why I chose the Hotel Rigioli in Baveno, because it was directly on the water. While the hotels I found in Stresa and the rest of Baveno were across this very busy street, and actually I didn't even want to eat at the restaurants because the street is so busy. So we stayed at the Hotel Rigioli, like I mentioned. This is a family-run gem right on the waterfront. Our corner balcony overlooked the islands, Isola Bella, Isola Madre, and we'd sit outside on our balcony every morning with a cappuccino. We actually would bring dinner back and have a light dinner on our balcony, just watching the sunset, listening to the church bells, and listening to the gentle sound of the water. This became our ritual each evening. What I loved about Baveno is how easily it felt like home. The ferry dock from Baveno almost mirrors Stresa. It's got pastel villas, wrought iron balconies, and flower-filled terraces, and you can easily catch ferries from either of these towns. Our guide did explain to us that Baveno's history is literally carved from pink granite that lies beneath its hills. For centuries, the stone has been quarried here and shipped across Italy, even being used in the construction of Milan's Duomo. Standing by the water and imagining that connection between this quiet town and one of grand cathedrals was so interesting. One afternoon, we wandered uphill from the lake to see the quarries for ourselves. In town, the church of Saints Gervasio and Protazio anchors Baveno's history. It's got a Romanesque bell tower built around the 11th century that rises above the rooftops like a guardian of time. Inside, soft light filters through narrow windows, illuminating centuries-old frescoes, a small baptistry that feels frozen in history. I remember stepping inside one quiet afternoon. I was on a walk by myself. I escaped the summer heat and felt peaceful when I left. It's a very beautiful spot. Outside, the small piazza comes alive with a local rhythm. Families chatting on benches, kids running around, the scent of focaccia, kids riding their bikes. And it's easy to see how every day exists here in Baveno. Not far from the church stands the Villa Fedora, surrounded by a lakeside park with old cedars and magnolias. It was once home to composer Umberto Giordano, who wrote parts of the opera Andrea Schenner while gazing over the lake. Today, the villa hosts open-air concerts in the summer, and I can see why. It's a great time to visit Baveno. We often take our walks past this park, sitting on the benches, watching the ferries. There's also the Villa Henfrey Branca and the Villa Musi. These peek through the trees, their facades faded but elegant, reminders of the 19th century Milanese family who had their summer retreats here. When it comes to food, Baveno did not disappoint. Our favorite restaurant quickly became Ristorante Posta right in the town center. The staff greeted us like family, and the menu changed with the season. There's fresh lake fish, handmade pasta, and risottos that taste like pure comfort. For something more elegant, there's the Granum Lounge and Bar at the Grand Hotel Dino, where the terrace looks straight over the water, perfect for a romantic dinner or a sunset cocktail. And if we stayed local for lunch, Hotel Rigioli's own restaurant offers simple but delicious plates with the best view on the lake. Evenings in Baveno had their own rhythm. We found gelato, the air would cool, the sky would turn purples and reds. Locals would gather for their evening walk, and the town seemed to slow down and sync with the water. One of Baveno's greatest pleasures is its lakeside promenade. It stretches along the water, lined with flowers, iron benches, just enough to shade, but make it perfect for walks. From here, the islands seem close enough to touch, their palaces and gardens glowing softly. We often caught the ferry back to Stresa for an hour or two. It's a short ride, but I really preferred Baveno. 5 nights was enough, but it's never enough. Just beyond Baveno, the shoreline curves toward Verbania, one of Lago Maggiore's larger towns, and a lively local center. It's home to elegant villas, a scenic waterfront, and the world-renowned Villa Taranto, whose botanical gardens are among the finest in Italy. Strolling through the terrace paths in springtime feels like walking inside a painting. Thousands of azaleas, camellias, and rare tropical species bloom in harmony with the lake breeze. Villa Taranto beautifully complements the garden artistry of Isola Madre, reminding travelers that the love of nature and beauty runs through the entire lake. Before we close today's journey, I want to take a moment and talk about some practical travel tips if you plan to go to Stresa, Baveno, the islands, etc. The easiest way is Milan. It's just an hour by train. From Milano Centrale, there's frequent stops by regional trains in Stresa, Baveno that continue north toward Domodossola near the Swiss border. If you're driving, take the A26 Autostrada dei Trafori and exit Baveno or Stresa. Parking near the lake is well marked, and some hotels even have private parking lots or shuttles. For travelers coming from Switzerland, the scenic Centovalli Railway that links Locarno to Domodossola offers breathtaking route through valleys, forests, and waterfalls. And from there, Stresa is only a short train ride away. The Centovalli Railway, whose name means 100 valleys, is a masterpiece of engineering. It crosses 83 bridges and 31 tunnels as it winds through gorges, waterfalls, and chestnut forests between Locarno and Domodossola. It's one of Europe's most scenic mountain rail journeys, and it's a spectacular way to approach the lake. Once you've arrived, the easiest way to explore the lake is by ferry. The Navigazione Lago Maggiore service connects all main towns and islands year-round, with more frequent routes in the spring and summer. A day pass lets you hop freely between the islands. Morning departures are calm and photogenic. Late afternoon crossings often have a queue. If you're looking for something special, a private water taxi can be arranged through most hotels or ferry docks, giving you more time on the islands and more time on the lake. Ferries do operate year-round on Lago Maggiore, but keep in mind that some island attractions, particularly the palace and gardens on Isola Bella and Isola Madre, close or shorten their hours during the winter months between October and mid-March. Spring through early autumn offers the fullest experience. Okay, best time to visit. The lake has its own personality every season. From April to June, you're looking at blossoming gardens and pleasant temperatures. We were there in May. It was pretty warm in May, I'll tell you. September and early October offer crystal clear skies and fewer crowds, ideal for photography and scenic walks. Winter is quiet but atmospheric with misty mornings, some fog, snow on the mountains. It's a time to relax and recharge. Festivals bloom too. Spring flower celebrations, summer concerts in the villas, and August's Ferragosto fireworks on Isola dei Pescatori that can be seen all over the southern lake. Where to stay? For timeless grandeur, the Grand Hotel del Illes Borromean in Stresa remains the icon, frescoed ceilings and a spa facing the lake. Nearby, Hotel La Palma offers a panoramic rooftop terrace. In Baveno, we used Hotel Reggioli. There's also the Grand Hotel Dino, which combines excellence and a resort feel with private pier access. As far as local flavors, order the risotto al pesce persico. This is a signature dish made with creamy rice and delicate perch fillets. Pair it with a glass of Gem, DOCG, or Gattinara wines that are produced just south of the lake in Piedmont's rolling hills. Finish, of course, with a scoop of hazelnut gelato and an espresso on the promenade while the water turns silver in the evening light. And remember, in Italy, meals are meant to be lingered over. So find a good spot and absorb Lago Maggiore. As far as an immersion travel tip, if you're looking to connect with local culture, plan to visit one of the weekly markets. Stresa has one that takes place on Friday, Baveno on Wednesday. They're filled with cheese from the valley, local honey, handmade ceramics, and interesting souvenirs. Bring a reusable bag and chat with vendors that will sell you more than just produce. As the sun sets behind the mountains, the lake mirrors a sky of pink and violet. You can hear the ferry horn echo across the water, the gentle chatter from the terrace in Baveno. It's a moment that captures everything the region represents: beauty, peace, and a connection to something timeless. In our next episode, we'll travel north, crossing the border to Switzerland to explore the Ticino region, the elegant towns of Locarno and Ascona, the mysterious Presagio Islands, and the way Swiss precision blends with Italian passion for the upper shores of Lago Maggiore. It's a world of mountains, artistic cafes, and festivals that bring both cultures together. If you haven't yet, follow the Immersion Travel Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. I'm Katerina Ferrara, and you'll find travel itineraries, guides, festival stories, and everything you need to know to travel to Italy on my website, katerinaferrara.com. Until next time, keep wondering, keep savoring, and keep immersing yourself in Italy.